Hey guys, this is Chris with Shadow Sessions today. I know you can't see me. We've got our first interviewer here today, so I'm going to pass the buck on to her. I'm going to let her introduce herself. This is Shadow Session number 2, and I think you all are really going to enjoy it. So, if you don't mind introducing yourself and just kind of giving a little backstory on you.
Okay, I'm Melanie Little. I helped raise Christopher, but I grew up on Belcher Fork, and everybody knew that our holler, half of it was haunted. It started at the Bella Holler, which is halfway through Belcher Fork, and the story is that I had relatives. She was pregnant, and her boyfriend beat her almost to the edge of death, but she was alive, and he buried her alive, and numerous people, when you were walking through there at night or driving through, you could hear her screaming and you could hear the baby crying all the time. It happened every night after dark. And I had family also that lived, it was on a creek in a little holler, and they lived up there. My grandfather was a Pentecostal preacher, so there was no lies told in our family. And in their home, the refrigerator doors would open at random and food would come out and walk across the room. People will walk up and slap you on the back, just all kinds of different things. And
So, what is something that was probably your most memorable experience inside the house?
and inside my I wasn't born when they lived there, but in my own home, there was this little boy that would stand in the hallway in the window every night. He just stood there with the rifle, and I was petrified of this child. And I remember when the movie 3 Men and a Little Lady, I don't know if you remember, they had the scenes where it was an accident and it just showed up. The little boy that was standing with a gun in the window in that movie is the same child that was in my hallway every night as a child. I went into severe panic attacks because I knew for sure that I was not losing my mind because he was somewhere else. And I could be laying in bed at night and things would sit down on my bed. My friends stopped staying all night with me because you could see their body sit down and the cover would sink down to the shape of a body. And I was petrified. I couldn't breathe, just the anxiety. I always slept with my head covered over. And we lost my Bible in that same room. For years, I couldn't find my Bible anywhere. And when we were moving, we made one sweep back through the house to see if we could find anything we had left behind. And laying in my bedroom floor was my Bible, and it had been twisted. Just twisted, just laying there on the floor. Probably 10, 12 years, we couldn't find that Bible anywhere, and there it was. And I tried to, none of the pages were damaged, but it stayed twisted the whole time. We never could straighten that Bible back out.
So do you think that this would have been, do you think that this was something that might have been a little malevolent?
I do, I definitely do. You could feel the evil. It was horrible, it was petrifying.
Did you ever experience anything physical or anything like that?
I did, not as much there. When I got older, I was at home and I was laying out on a fold-out bed, and something just took hold of my mouth and I couldn't breathe. And it actually lifted my body up off of the ground. It was just a big black figure that laid over top of me. It lifted me off the ground, and I was trying to holler and I couldn't say anything.
Did you say a black figure?
Yeah.
And it was over top of your body?
Yeah, it was completely levitating over top of my body, and then it just picked me up off the ground. And I'm a big woman, and I was just levitating with this thing on top of me. And I remember thinking in my head, I couldn't say Jesus, I couldn't do anything, couldn't breathe. And my mom was asleep in the bedroom across the house, and something woke her up, and she started praying and just dropped me, just thumped me down on the floor. I had weird stuff like that happen to me all the time.
Wow.
So you can't tell me that it doesn't exist, and I'm not really proud of this, but my daughter's aunt decided to do a seance one time in Lexington, And she remembered me talking about the little boy that came in my window all the time. And she said, let's channel him. And I'm like, let's not. I hadn't had any problems with him in forever. But long story short, she was doing the seance and all the candles blew out and the electricity went off. And that night when I went back downstairs to my bedroom, there was a big, huge painting that her grandmother had made, and you could watch it lift up, and it came up off the wall, and it slung across the room and landed right on top of me. And that happened for months after she channeled that little boy.
Like things would fly off the wall?
Yeah, and hit just me. It didn't bother anybody else.
So, do you feel like you have had almost an attachment over the years?
It would seem that way. I've not had anything happen in a long time, but that was about 12, 13 years ago. Not had anything since, but he definitely came to Lexington, all the way to Lexington, and made my life miserable for some months. Things would disappear. Like I said, that big picture, I don't know why that picture, but it would always come up off the wall, no matter how many nails you put on it, and just pick up and slam on top of me.
So you would physically nail this thing to the wall?
Yeah, and it would still lift up off the wall. Isabella's dad watched it happen one time, petrified him.
So, one thing I want to touch back on is the dark figure that come over you. And I'm sorry, I don't want to like re-traumatize you or anything like that, but this black figure that came over you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Can you describe it, how it looked?
Like, I don't know how to explain it. It was like, kind of like holographic. It was black. It had a form, and it was long and flowing, but you could see through it.
You could see through it?
Yeah, it was weird. You knew it was there and it was solid, but you could see through it like light glistened through things. Kind of like when you get an orb. No, that's not. It would remind you to see through like an orb. I've been in graveyards and captured pictures of orbs and spirits and stuff, and that's kind of what it was like, but it was solid. But you could see through it like an orb. It's weird.
So, in the holler that you lived in there, just touching back on that a little bit, the backstory of that, you actually had somebody that was unalived.
Yeah.
Who was pregnant.
Yeah.
So how?
Well, he buried her alive.
Oh, so he buried her alive.
Yeah, and I think my family had said that he put like huge stones and everything over the dirt so that she couldn't get out. But as far as everyone says, she was alive when she was buried, but he had almost beat her to the edge of, she was almost gone.
Right. So how often would you hear that?
I only heard it a couple times, but everybody said it was every single day. Any time at night that you would drive down, it was always there. My dad had said one time that he saw old caskets floating down the river on that creek there where everything started also.
Right, and there were a lot of incidents back then where floods would happen and would actually rise these caskets and
that's
take
when
them
the
down
casket
the
was
floods.
floating, yeah.
There was a lot of burial and things that went on around that area, wasn't there?
There was. It's until how many other bodies are there nobody will ever know about. The entire Holler isn't nobody ever wanted to come and visit because it was so petrifying. There was no doubt whatsoever that there was something there. You could feel it. I never ever walked down that road alone at night. You probably couldn't pay me $1 million to walk down there right now.
And me, myself, I can remember when I was a boy and I would come and stay all night with you all, you know, with Aunt Nita and you. I can remember things happening while I was there. And I can remember, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember a time when you would tell me don't go into the basement.
Yeah.
Now, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, if you remember when you went into the basement, then there was a separate cellar. and it had a tiny little door, and it was dirt, and it was dug into tunnels. That's where my grandmother would keep her stuff that she would can, and my uncles used to lock me in that cellar and shut the door and put stuff against it so I couldn't get out for hours, and you could feel things breathing on the back of your neck. And it was just like this big, heavy, cold. It was fear, but you could feel it like it was a big blanket on top of you. It was something cold, and you could feel things breathing on you and hitting on you and pushing on you. And I get stuck in there for hours till someone come and save me. And when you went upstairs, there was another tiny closet, and things happened in there. They would lock me in there, and the same stuff would happen. Stuff would disappear in there. I hated that house. Was so bad. I had stuff like that happen to me all the time. And my grandparents lived in there, and they would pray, and stuff didn't bother them, but it bothered a lot of us other ones. Didn't bother them after Papa became a preacher. I guess he prayed things away. I don't know why they clung to me, but I've had stuff follow me all my life like that.
Do you feel like maybe you're a little more sensitive to things that are like that?
I do. I really do. I've always had a second sense about things. I don't know what it means, and I'm not a witch, but I always know when things are going to happen. I would remember when my best friend Sean got killed, and I heard footsteps on the porch, and I just knew. I answered the door, and I said, "Who was it? Which friend was it?" And she told me that it was Sean. And like when my Uncle Mikey passed away, I was at my ex-husband's. We were just dating then, and the phone rang, and I told him, I said, "Take that call. I don't want this call." I said, "Somebody in my family died, and I don't want to take this call." And he went to the phone, and he answered it, and he lost all color in his face. And he turned around, and he looked at me, he said, "How did you know?" I said, "I just know who was it." And he told me who it was that passed away. And he thought I was a witch, but I don't know, I just have a sense. I guess I'm just sensitive. I don't know why. I can see things, and I feel things, and I know things, and I don't know how to explain it myself.
Right. And this is just a question. You don't have to elaborate on it if you don't want to. But have you ever dealt in the occult or anything at all, or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
I never have. I know there's a dark side, and that petrifies me.
Right.
I've actually saw people be possessed, and I actually watched somebody die through a possession when they was trying to cast the spirit out of them. So I don't delve into that, and I don't play with that. A lot of people don't believe, but there is a dark side, and there are other things that walk around, and I've saw the bad side of that, and I never wanted to dabble in that. I wish I hadn't taken part in the seance either, but we did.
Well, I think, being young, we all kind of get curious before we know, especially what the Bible really says and what it tells us to do and things like that.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you'd like to share, or anything else that you'd like to elaborate on?
I can't think of anything, but I can tell you that there are other things out there. There's things that we will never probably understand, and some people may never see them, but I can promise you they're out there. My grandfather, which is Christopher's great-grandfather, but he was in World War II, and he drove around General Patton on special situations because he was one of the best snipers in the Army. But he always told us, he wouldn't tell us much, but he did say that if we knew what the government hid from us, we'd never sleep at night, and there are other things out there. So if you ever have any questionable doubt, I can promise you, from my experience, my grandfather never lied. There are other things out there.
Yeah, he was a pastor for 54 years. There was never a time I know of him to tell me anything false.
No. And he would never tell anything about the war, but he did tell us, because they had saw different things. Mom saw things as a child, and my grandfather's like, yeah, there's things out there. We may not understand it, but there's definitely things out there. That's why I love what you all are doing. People might not believe it, but I can tell you from experience that there are definitely things out there that we can't explain.
So I really, really, really appreciate you sharing your story and some of the events that have happened in your life. I'm sure the fans will agree that that's some pretty wild stuff to go out through at one lifetime.
It is.
But again, I really appreciate it. If you want to just share your name again.
Melanie Little, which I have to legally go by Thomas. That's the only thing I wanted back from my divorce, and I haven't done that yet because I had to have a heart transplant. But yeah, my name is Melanie Little. I live in Jackson, Kentucky.
Well, Melanie, we really appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you.
You guys, be sure to like and subscribe. There's going to be plenty more to come. Thank you all.